Namaste and welcome, beloved mighties, holy bringers of the light of totality, infinite love. What could be better than this? It's so many beautiful joinings with some of the beings that are watching the videos online or joining. We have the kids next door playing in the pool. And it's so much fun to laugh, really, over some of these. We're starting to see through the machinations that consciousness plays at through these light circles. I'm so grateful how easy it is Jesus is making for us to recognize in the light, which we can always recognize, the decisions here. And then the simplicity and the directness of, okay, I see the denial, here's a miracle. And showing us how easy it is to talk with the light and have that conversation with the infinite being, because we're that. You know, I don't know if this is, I have no idea if this is true, but it just came into things coming into awareness for purpose. And I'll tell you what Jesus said about it when I asked him. Someone said, well, someone's Helen Schuckman has reincarnated. And I didn't, you know, I go to Jesus for everything, really. You know, I just ask him immediately, you know, is this something to look at or how to, without making any decisions about anything. And what he's saying is his point here with the light circles is that we can all hear his voice as well as Helen. All we have to do is be willing to adhere it. Because we can hear it when we read the Course and we see in the Course that that's the voice. It just happened to come through Helen in that way, or seems like it comes through this body to type. But really, he's talking about everyone having that level of letting that voice go through. We can ask the divine light. Does the light have any limitations on us hearing the voice for God with pristine clarity? See that the light has it's not drawing up a contract and saying some beings can hear me better than others. It just seems like some expressions, he just makes use of that expression, but it doesn't change everyone's. I mean, he was very clear in the first chapter to teach anything other than every being can hear my voice. It certainly won't come out of this mouth, because that would deny infinite love is here. The divine power would not honor my brother, actually, to even think that. And what's been so wonderful about these joinings, the level of joy hearing my brother speak like Jesus is just this is the gift everyone brings to this world. This is what we're called to in this world, to speak Jesus. And what we're just doing in these infinite light circles of light is we're clearing out the doubt the decision to doubt that we can. That this voice for God moves through us with all the power given by the Father. And so we're here together to see that there's light, to see that we can know that we're infinite light, that there's only infinite light, and then stand together as these old energies of death just wash out, are cleared with miracles, and ask for the light to show us. So it's coming to mind around reincarnation. So let's just have a talk with Jesus about that. How about reincarnation? Let's have a talk. Everybody I'm going to sit up for that. Let's just ask Jesus about that, because we can all hear it. So much more fun than the old way, I'll tell you that much. talking to that voice all day. Okay, so In the light of divine being, first of all, in that infinite light that we all can recognize, is anyone born? Okay, now I think this is going to pretty much take care of the idea of reincarnation. Okay. The ego would love reincarnation because that means we can all take another little tour around the consciousness block. So let's ask the light. These light circles are going to get funny and funny. I can tell you, we're going to be laughing our heads off of this. Okay, now, so in the light of divine being and honesty of God, does anything die? Is it possible to die? Does the light die? Does it go away? What happens after a body falls away? Is the light still here? There's still the light. We can't change. Is the light ever sleeping? Let's ask the light. Does the light sleep? Sleep's a play in consciousness. Let's ask the light. Is sleep a play in consciousness? And hear what the light says. Okay, sleep's a play in consciousness that we have to even have an idea. Do we have, let's just ask, do we have to sleep? I mean, like in sleep at night, ask the light. Does light know anything about it? It's play in consciousness. So the idea of birth and death, those are plays in consciousness. So within sequential dreaming, it may seem like a body comes, a body goes. It's a play in consciousness. Like David Hoffmeister says, you start to realize, okay, so let's just ask. Unless this play is cleared from consciousness, will the ego haunt us even in death? Let's ask. And here's the answer. Even after the body falls away, we'll still be playing in consciousness. It's a play. So let's ask the light. See, this is really good. Bring every question. Reincarnation. Okay. So does the light have any requirement for us to reincarnate for supreme happiness? Is it saying, why don't you just hold out to the next life and then you can be supremely happy? Is Jesus saying that in a course? He's certainly saying in a new covenant, now. Is the light having a little strategic plan to wait till the next dream? In there, can we find that? Infinite light. Is the light finding a way to making a little strategic plan to create another body? Light transcends time and space. Does the light transcend time and space in our direct experience? So now the light training begins. What cannot die, what doesn't know death or pain. We need to wake up cease to deny, really. Is the light ever sleeping? Let's ask the light if it sleeps. Does it sleep? Either in sort of there are different forms of consciousness playing. When our eyes are closed, conscious is playing like it doesn't remember itself. When our eyes are open, conscious is playing like it doesn't know itself as whole. But even with that play, does the light itself ever sleep? In our direct experience as light beings. So it's really helpful. Anything that arises in consciousness, you can have this conversation with infinite light. Ask the light, is this necessary? Is this helpful? It'll point you to what's most helpful for awakening. it'll offer the fastest way. Now, whether that will be chosen, we can't, because after a while, after we've been looking for a while, the ego is going to start, because we don't really want to see the light. In the light of divine being, do we really want to see the light and hear the light? So while we're on that topic, it's really helpful. Okay, if you saw a no in there, let's ask for a miracle. I'm willing to put any kind of no to the light, right in the light. That energetic contraction, or, sometimes we freeze like rabbits, or freeze. I don't want to see the light. That's how bad it is, really, in terms of the addiction to denying divinity. But we can still, it's really helpful. Even if we don't want to see, we can start there and go, Jesus, I really don't want to say, can I have a miracle? And start there. Or Jesus, I'm not willing. Can I have a miracle on that unwillingness miracle? And ask the light, will it help us if we're unwilling? See, the light answers yes. So we just give that, oh, forgive the unwilling. Will it help us if we're angry? And hear the light. See, there's whatever we throw at the light, it's going to say it's going to help us. The only time it can help us if we say, I don't want help, and we try to shut it down. By all kinds of hearing difficulties that show up. And I had someone calling me this week and saying, I really, I have all these problems with my ears. Several people have actually talked to me about, and let's ask what that is. Is that the desire not to hear? It's just a symbol of not wanting to hear and block the voice for God. So we have to go deeper and look. But what we typically do, not we, a play in consciousness, no one's actually doing it. It's a play in consciousness to keep deny the miracle, will head its little self off down to a store and buy a drug, and then to try to take care of it. It's just that after a while, after we've forgiven a lot, we don't believe, there's no belief that will support that change in form anymore. And then the drugs don't work because we see through it, but we still want to play. It's like, why is this drug not working? Because there's no belief that that's going to work. It's no longer the belief in magic. And after a while, I just start going, why am I believing in magic? I've got Jesus. We've got divine light. Let's just ask the light. Like, if I have a headache, is the first place the light going to send me to the store to buy a pill? And hear what the light says. Because the light knows that beings coming to this group are powerful enough to look with the light, see, and not be afraid. See, because Jesus recommends, if you're going to be afraid, go ahead, take a pill. It's better than just being afraid, and because the light doesn't induce pain or fear. So it's not, or he's not forcing anything on us, but he's saying, well, let's just ask, are we powerful enough to look at anything appearing in form to see that it's not true, and see what the light says? So we have the power to look as in any objective experience. We're infinite being. Are we infinite being in the light of divine being? To transcend the idea that fear is true. So these things can play in consciousness. I could see the play here. I've told stories where, at that point where it was helpful to help see through some of the delusions seemingly movies ran of past lives and these sort of things. Every piece of that can be used for forgiveness, to see where those desired experiences are. Like I said, when I started seeing those movies of different lifetimes, and it was like, wait, different dreams, to deny divinity. It was helpful. It's like, but it's not different from looking at a movie on a screen. But it was helpful in that case to see the switching between, okay, one lifetime, one little story is going to be a victim, and another story is going to be the victimizer, those switching off of victim and victimizer through sequential stories. But we can see that in this lifetime, in the play of consciousness. Everyone's had those experiences in the play. Have we all had in the light of divine? And we can ask Jesus to show them to us too. We ask the light. In the light of divine being, has there been a play in consciousness to experience being both a victim and a victimizer? And hear what the light says. That's just the play. That's the way consciousness plays. Let's just ask the light, is that necessary experience to play victim or victimizer, feel like a victim or a victimizer? And is it true? Does the light know what a victim or a victimizer is? See, what is doesn't have an argument with itself. In our direct experience, does the light have an argument with itself in any way? It just is. It doesn't know what that is, because to have an argument, you need two things arguing. So we pretend like it's someone else outside of us that we're having an argument with, when the whole time we can ask the light, is consciousness a desire to experience an argument with ourselves? He says it in a course. It's just really helpful when we see, when it's like, yep, when we really see that, because that is the gateway through. It's like, we're going home now, because we see where that was. We talk about the buck stops. The buck stops with the decision to deny, to see that that's a desired experience. The desire to experience death in a body, the desire to experience victim and victimizer. We can just ask if there's any more in there. It's always good. I'm asking, is this helpful for a miracle? I can hear yes. So then, all right, Jesus, is there any desire below my level of awareness to continue to play victim in the dream? Will you show me any place where that little dance is happening? And I'm willing to place any energy around that contraction or motions or anything that's rising in the light to be shown another way, and see what happens to that contraction around victim. We'll start with victim. And see how quickly the light, can that feeling of being a victim, can that coexist with infinite light in our direct experience? Can we find a way? See that it's just an energetic charge, an energetic investment. And let's ask the light, is this a desired experience if it appears? If we feel like a victim, is that desired? And hear what the light says. Does that have to be desired to arise in our experience? He's reminding me about the desire for weakness, the experience of weakness. So we just gently place that weakness, energy, small, unworthy, whatever those kinds of desired experiences are, and we just say, okay, I'm willing to see this differently in the light of divine being. No longer play in that the no thing arena, the arena of small, insignificant. God being a victim is God belief that God would come after me. We just put that whole thing and ask for like a miracle change in perception over victimhood. Like so much infinite joy gets released with these things. It's like, Santa Claus comes to town permanently. Okay. And the real man, the real deal Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas, the bringer of the light, takes up shop. We are the Christmas tree. All our lights go on. Our lights go on and nobody's home. That's the best. Okay, so we looked at, oh, so much love in this to look with Jesus. Okay, so we looked at the victim. Now let's look at the victimizer. Really look straight, because a lot of times we don't see where we're trying to, it seems like we're whipping somebody else, but it's not necessarily, a torture chamber. It's not necessarily that obvious. It can be very, very subtle. When we make, yes, okay, Jesus is giving, when we make our brother guilty over something or try to make, that's our making ourselves guilty, but that's a victim, trying to make a victimizer, trying to be a victimizer. It's a way the ego tries to do power play, usurp the power of God. It's still a judgment. So we can ask Jesus, will you show us any place in consciousness and our awareness that we were playing the victimizer game, denying ourselves divinity? And then we just ask them for a miracle. Okay, I see it. Thank you. The guilt-free zone. Innocence playing in this little game. And so I'm ready for a miracle around playing a victimizer. Make guilty. Any kind of attack. Any kind of belief that anyone else is a victim. Jesus, are there any desires or experience to look out in the world and see others as a victim? That's victimizing. I'm just checking in. Yep. We can ask in live divine being, if we see one single soul out there as a victim, are we a victimizer? And here the light says. So we can see why the light teaches no false empathy. Because if we see a victim out there, there's not a victim out there. That's the way we believe about ourselves, that it's possible to be a victim. We can ask the light this, and the light of divine being, is that true? If we see one single victim out there, is that our belief about ourselves? And here what the light says. That feels really good to take that whole, however that mechanism appears in consciousness, the whole bolus of that energy around the idea that they could possibly be a victim out there in the world, and place that whole thing. Like, I love it. Jesus sometimes would say, you can back a dump truck up and give it to me full of stuff. Feels really good. And just hand it over and ask for a miracle. and see how long victim, the idea that there can be a victim, lasts in the light of divine being. This gets to be like being on the drug of happiness, which is natural. Why are you so happy? Because I'm no longer trying to victimize myself. Find victims in the world. It's ridiculously happy. I didn't see, I was walking down the street, but and this psychologically looking around every corner, waiting for attack. Waiting to come get me, locking your car. You know, the Jesus is still practical. You know, he might like here. He said, okay, you're going to set the alarm. But I don't know what that's for. It's because Jesus told me to do it. That's why I'm doing it. We lived here for like how many months? 3 months, 4 months. I didn't have an alarm, didn't even work, you know. I love that. Brahman Maharshi, so cool. Some bunch of robbers like broke in and stole money. And I think he offered him more and hit him on the leg, and he offered his other leg. Oh my gosh, it's so hilarious, really. You know, Jesus says, give him your other coat. I might have to put that because I felt a little tension. In the light of divine being. Ask for a miracle. That's the play of consciousness. To hear one thought and then have a little tension over. So he looked at victim and victimizer and seeing, and no false empathy, how valuable that is to divine being. Does the light have any empathy? That's so great. Does the light have empathy? Let's find that in the light of divine being. It doesn't know what that is, actually. I find that as an experience in the light. It doesn't know what those things are because it sees everything at whole. In order to have false empathy, you have to believe that something's actually happening. Let's ask. Does the light have any beliefs about anything happening? It just is. It's not involved with what's happening, seeming to happen. It's just expressing as love expressing. It's not being. So it doesn't, that's like a shocker though at first when you first realize, no, the light doesn't know what empathy is. That's the only way we can serve the whole. Because if we have this false empathy and going around and believing in the world, it doesn't mean we're made, does the light not made, the light's not made of stone. But how many times in our lives, like we're really happy or joyous and someone comes in up and says a sad story and automatically we're sad, you see? We just abdicated the expression of joy. You know, and we have to ask like that, you know, we have to act in a box. That's the way, that's the rules of the ego. and some couple of beings have told me like, you're not, you have to see what you're laughing for. You know, if you're just laughing out of divine being, you're not laughing at someone, you're just divine expression. The things that might have disturbed you before just aren't, you know, it just, they actually look funny. You're not trying to be, you know, there's just, no one's trying to do anything. It's just funny because you see past it. You see that it's a play. It's a dance, the devil dance. Our minds can't be free as long as we have false empathy. for what's happening in the world. And as long as we have Jesus telling us what to say and we're listening to that, we'll always be totally appropriate. Because he knows the big picture. He knows what to say. And actually, in the ways of the world, sometimes he'll tell you things to say that feel totally inappropriate, but you need to say them. And this one comes to mind. It's pretty hilarious, actually. But I see it now, how just being that kind of level of directness. And I remember, sometimes you go, where is that coming from? Because it's not coming from you. you know it's not coming from the eye. It's coming from somewhere beyond the eye. And I remember having this guy, as I'm teaching in the prison, there was this guy, and this social worker came up to me, he'd said, he is so bad in my class. And I'm thinking, God, he's just a little angel. But they're all quote unquote bad boys. They're not in there because they're the play of consciousness because they're well behaved. I mean, they're all drug deal, and expressions in consciousness of fear and that kind of expression, it's still innocence. I thought they were adorable. But anyway, and I remember he came in for a coaching session and it just came, I don't know where this came from. That was not, and I just walked up to him and, and they're I'm little down here and they're way up there. And I just go, you are a leader. When is that going to start showing up? And he goes, what a reflection in the mind, of just having that spirit move through. And he goes, this is refreshing because he had the call. So we're all called to lead in a different way. You see, to lead with the heart, to lead in truth, and to see, that Jesus was training me in charity. The power of seeing more in your brother than he sees in himself. And how powerful that training was consistently over time. Because it's pointing this way. See, you don't know it at that time because you're thinking, oh, there's an other out there. Or I'm going into prison to coach. But it just totally flipped everything. It was like light all day. Because it was constant focusing on the light and focusing on truth to go in there, in that prison and see more in my brother than see that light training. And that's our only function, is to go out in the world just like that. And if there is a play, there's going to be play. Even after we see light, there's still a play going to happen as though there are others. And so it's going to play, and it's going to play like that. And so that practice of charity, of seeing more in our brother, is a very helpful practice that Jesus is offering, to see the light in our brother and let that spirit scream through like that. Because if you notice, a lot of times in consciousness, we're tiptoeing around our brother, tiptoeing around situations, and it's all expression of fear. It's like Jesus says, you behave based on your beliefs. Your behavior is going to follow what your beliefs are. That's why we spent all the time, and it was helpful for me in the prison. That's all we did, is look at beliefs. And collapsing beliefs until this light showed, Jesus showed this light. And after that, we didn't talk about anything. Just put it in the light, just like these light circles, and see how fast it goes. We need that light, to let that light, letting? It's just ceasing not to let, really, because it's natural to us to be direct. That is the biggest misnomer, or that the ego is going to play oh, I don't want to be some kind of mamby-pamby spiritual. Actually, it's quite the opposite. It's not mean. It's clear. It's no longer tiptoeing. tiptoeing everything. And you start to see how we've been tiptoeing, and the tiptoeing is fear, rather than listening what Jesus says, because it's expression of divine light. And just, I love it. David Hoffmeister says, let your yays be yays and your nays be nays. Because the ego's plan is for us to totally get so discombobulated and spend all our time messing around with trying to make decisions. Let's ask the light that. When we think back in our lives, because we've all been around that spiritual block, I know we have, right? Think of the time spent in diagrams, charts, discussions, trying to do the right thing, trying to figure out what the right thing is. In the light of divine being, is there any room whatsoever in that for divine being? Into the relief of just knowing that we can go directly to the light, and then the light gives us the instructions. Does light say that? Yes, no. That's what's really been helpful here too, with this whole, property, or, somebody's walking up every single day with something breaking. What good my light training that is, well, what do I do here? And just go up, so that you don't have to spend any time on that. If someone had told me that, I just would have told them, take it. That was crazy. They were crazy to say this, but now I know. Now we know, because we can hear the light. Ask the light and then follow the light unerringly. Any kerfuffles, or follow the light. If think about it, if like Muji would say, think about it, but not too much. If there's a voice that lets us know that there's no death, there's only life, that we've never been born, is that a good source of information? Is that the source worth hearing? We're talking about access, well, to divine light, first of all, but Limitless is a really good movie, because you can see this in Lucy too, where you start to have access to super consciousness in totality. So you're accessing, the one who knows. I mean, it doesn't mean, sometimes you might do little charts and graphs. I mean, I'm not saying that would totally disappear. I'm just the experience here. We can ask, can the light just tell us immediately what to do without a graph? The answer is like, was the infinite divine being have to do a lot of graphing and charting to know what's most helpful? See, that's so just, well, let's ask, can we be supremely happy doing all those machinations? In our direct experiences, light being, can we be supremely happy and spend so much time on quote unquote decisions? So let's ask the light. In the light of divine being, do decisions even happen? Does the light make decisions? Is there any decision making whatsoever in the light? Are there any choices? The light make any choices whatsoever? A single choice happening inside the light of divine being. So a choice is an idea arising. And it comes up and it goes like this, split. All of a sudden there's two and something to choose between. That's immediate. Let's ask the light, is that immediate experience of death? So we need the light for a time, as Jesus said, to help us take that whole idea, to lift us up out of that idea that there's a choice to be made on anything. because choice is placing a value, ordering our thoughts and going, okay, this is better. It's trying to figure out a future. If I make this choice now, then my future will be better. See how that a choice creates an experience that there's a future that I've learned from the past, and what I learned from the past is going to help me make a decision now so that I can have a better future. So it's like a play in consciousness to perpetuate the idea of a future and a past. When light itself makes no choices, it doesn't have anything to choose between. That's why he calls it choiceless awareness. We can ask, is supreme happiness choiceless awareness? So the spirit helps us wash out choice by constantly going to the spirit when there seems to be a decision, until we see there's no decisions. This feels really good. Jesus, are there any desire below my level of awareness to experience decision making? I'm willing to see decisions. I'm going to put that up for a miracle. The light of divine being, even the idea that choice is possible, any decision. And put that in the holy tabernacle of this group. In the light of divine being and honesty of God, does divine being make any decisions? And does the light know what choice is? To choose between would be to divide. How can we divide what's already whole, holy, and complete? Are we already whole, holy, and complete in the light of divine being? Thank you. Thank you, Jesus, so much for showing me the way with my brothers. Amen. This truly is the path to infinite happiness. We're so worthy of that. I love you all from San Juan, Cosala, Mexico.